But I gotta be honest, I can't say that this day wasn't a long time coming. Well, hello again there, guys. Brian here, the Three Topics Gamer, and yeah, I'm kind of in a really down mood, and it's been bothering me for, I'd say, a good number of days. But yes, as the title states, I think it's officially now time for me to retire from the card game of Yu-Gi-Oh. Now, I've been a fan of this franchise since the very beginning, going back all the way back in 2002 when I think the game kind of came over here in the United States, and I was able to pick up my very first packet of the Legend of the Blue Eyes card packet. And to this day, I can remember just about every single card I got in that package. And since then, it had really been a big part of my life for a long time. I played it all throughout middle school, all throughout high school, a little bit in college, and I took a break, and then I kind of came back to it and made all kinds of great friends. I've had all kinds of great experiences. I grew up watching the cartoon series every single Saturday morning. It was just a fun experience. And then when I kind of came back to it after a while, and I'd seen just how much the game had really evolved and it changed and it got much faster, and there were archetypes and all these different fast-pacing strategies and building boards, I was kind of resistant to it for a bit. But then I kind of got used to it, and then I started building a whole bunch of different decks. But my main experience was mainly done by just playing a lot of Master Duel, which, to be fair, that's what a lot of people that still play Yu-Gi-Oh tend to do. And over the past, I'd say, like, maybe few months, my experience with the game has really just kind of gone down seriously. And I think the reason I feel like I need to retire from it, at least the card cave variation, is because one, it's just not fun playing with anonymous strangers that are using all these annoying type of decks. I mean, and what makes it worse is the fact that I have to build decks and use cards that I would never use. Like, the game has just gotten so overly technical that decks and duels don't even last very long. And it's simplistic in terms of how long the games actually match up, but like they're so overly technical. It's like turns take too long. There's so many hand traps, and again, it came back to just me using strategies and cards I would never do. Like, every deck is spamming like 3 Maxis and then 3 Ash Blossoms and 3 Calls to the Graves, and it's kind of annoying. And what's more is that even with the card game, it's kind of funny. Like it's been like years since I've actually purchased cards, and like the type of archetypes I stick with, they're simply too slow. Like, they can't compete with like the top decks, and like I don't even like to play competitive, so I like to stay away from decks like Labyrinths and Runics and Snake Eyes and Trap Tricks, and it's just kind of annoying. And I think what hurts the game is when you don't have anyone really to play with. Or fun format. Like, I know there's GOATs, and honestly, if like Master Duel had like a function that allowed you to play like that, and they kind of experiment a little bit with special events, and those are always kind of fun to experiment with. It's just when you don't have that option, the game just kind of gets annoying that like the majority of people are using the same same 3 or 4 decks, and it's just kind of annoying. And on top of that, because I like to play a lot of floodgates, which I typically don't like to, but you have to, it kind of comes to the point where like duels are sometimes over, not even by the first turn, but like who wins the coin toss. Like, if you get the coin toss and you automatically see what type of deck they're playing, you can automatically know that if you don't have like the right hand or you're not playing the right deck, the game is already over before it starts. And what's the problem is that because a lot of the game has turned into just mainly nothing but negates, the purpose of it is like to kind of stop your opponent from even playing his deck, or from even starting a combo going, or getting a strategy going, or just anything going. And it was never like that. And I understand that like a lot of people like that. It's much more fast-paced, but like there's no back and forth anymore. Like, honestly, I would rather lose a duel that went like 30-40 turns than win a duel by just playing one card. And I've done that so many times. Like, I play like certain cards that like make it hard for like the opponent to special summon except a certain type of monster. And just by playing that one card, the opponent will automatically surrender. Because by playing one card on my part, I make it so that they can't even play. And so I'm a part of the very problem I'm complaining with. And it's only just now that I'm starting to kind of realize that, like, this is going to be a never-ending pattern, and there's almost no way to fix it. Now, if you're playing competitively, that has its own set of problems. I'm not even talking about the people that play competitively, because I don't know anyone in this city that even still plays Yu-Gi-Oh! The card game. Like, I sat back and think, like, I still have all my cards that I've been building since the very beginning that have gone through multiple upgrades, and they've changed, and they've adapted, and they've included synchros and exceeds. I haven't quite gotten to links yet, but using all these different types of strategies. And then when I look at, like, how I would play this, in just like the standard format compared to how all my decks are built in Master Duel, they are like completely different. I was like, I would never run like half of those cards in my modern deck, and plus they're expensive, and so it's just like, it's almost like I'm going to spend all this money to buy the actual card that I'll never really get to play against anybody, because there's really nowhere in this damn city to even play Yu-Gi-Oh! Or to meet people that I know that actually still play the card game in the like the older format. And like, I don't mind that slower format because it kind of adds that interaction. Now, I'll never stop being a fan of the franchise. I mean, you're talking to someone whose friend recently just got him a second attempt Pharaoh, and like one of the coolest things I did recently with some of the tens is they were part of this 10 section, and I actually just kind of melted them together to make the stone tablet. So I don't know, I actually could do some pretty interesting photoshops with this, and that'd be pretty cool. And I still have my dual discs that I've had since middle school, and I still go back and I watch the first generation of Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, I'm considered what's called a boomer, but I think it just comes down to, it's now just gotten to the point where I no longer have fun playing the game, because it's not even so much that I'm facing opponents that are using decks which entire purpose is to stop me from playing, but I have to ostensibly do the same thing differently, perhaps more annoyingly, and I'm getting to the point where I'm uncomfortable doing that. And look, I don't care about wins and losses. It's all about the experience. It's all about the interaction. And when I play on Master Duel, there is no interaction. And honestly, I think like the best duel I had ever in a Yu-Gi-Oh game, especially on Master Duel, I was using this water deck, and the game went 50 turns, and it was so much back and forth. Like, every turn he would take over, then I would take over the next turn. It's like, I miss that. I miss that duels were battles. I mean, nowadays it just comes down to whoever goes first, you build your board. If your opponent breaks your board, the game is effectively over. I mean, games are over in like 2 or 3 turns, and sometimes turns go on for too long. Like, sometimes if someone literally goes on a turn that lasts for like 4 minutes, I'll just quit the duel immediately because I just don't want to waste any time. And it gets to the point where, like, I see these decks so often that even though I don't use them, I probably could play them, and that sucks. And mind you, they're using decks that I would never even consider playing. And heck, there's even some decks that I've built like a Stardust deck and an Archfiend deck. But the problem is that against some of these top tier decks that everyone is using, they're simply too slow, especially if you go second. And that's always been frustrating. And so, like, maybe at some point, if I find like a good group of friends or good group of people that like to have those longer duels, I might consider coming back. But in terms of the actual card game itself, I think I can walk away. Like, usually I would play Master Duel like every single day, and I would play it like on all my devices, whether it be my PlayStations or my computer or my phone. It's like, I'm not doing that anymore. Like, I recently just deleted them all those off my devices, and I think I'm gonna stay away. Now to be fair, they are releasing like a new like Yu-Gi-Oh game that involves like older Yu-Gi-Oh games that came out like really early. I think I'll try that out. But in terms of like the game and the condition it's in, like, unless I find a good group of people to play with, I just don't see a reason to come back. I don't see a reason to play any more cards. I don't see a reason to buy them anymore. It's just like, what's the point? I mean, I'm gonna buy cards that are just gonna sit in my closet and collect dust because I'll have no one to play with. And then I'm gonna continue playing on Master Duel with a bunch of decks that are just annoying to play, that I've seen so often that, heck, if I decided to build my own deck, I would just be doing the very thing that annoys the other player and stops them from playing. I mean, here's the crazy part. I've been playing Master Duel for so damn long. It has actually been over 2 years since I've actually taken out someone's life points down to 0. That is exceedingly rare, because if you see that the duel is going badly, you'll surrender or your opponent will surrender. And they'll know when it's time to, I'm about to lose, I see where the combo's going, I'll just leave. Like, taking someone's life points down to 0 is so incredibly rare in Master Duel right now, and it's nuts. And sometimes they'll surrender, like, on the first turn. Or sometimes I'll do it on the first turn, just because I see what the first card is. Like, the second I see one of those really annoying decks, I'll just immediately get up and quit. I'll be like, yep, I'm not dealing with that type of deck. I wish there was like a function that would like label the type of deck that the type of deck that you're using. Like that would be funny, because then you could actually see what decks are using, and then you can avoid dueling those type of people and be like, you know what, I don't want to duel that type of deck. I want to duel that type of deck. And sometimes mirror duels are a little bit fun because you kind of can know what the other opponent's going to do, and those are always fun, but that rarely happens, at least in my experience, especially with the type of decks that I typically run. And I usually run like 2 or 3 different types of decks, just depending on the event itself. But yeah, it's a sad day, and there's like a lot of top tier competitors they're quitting the duel too. But heck, I'm not a top tier competitor. I'm just someone who just grew up with the franchise, who has enjoyed this card game for over 20 years, and just kind of feels like I'm at the point where it's like the card game has kind of outgrown me. And unless there's some major changes, or I can find like a good group of friends to play with, I just don't see a reason to keep playing the card game. Now again, I will still always be a fan, but I think I can let the card game go. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. Now, if anyone sees it that happens to play Yu-Gi-Oh, do you guys feel the same way? If you happen to like walk away from the card game, when did that happen, and what was the final straw? What broke your camel's back to convince you to leave the card game for good? Please let me know what your experience was in the comments down below. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I'll see you guys next time.